Betsy Folwell with us to do a cooking demonstration using maple as part of our ALCA-Seltzer series for 2021. Thank you so much for doing this, Betsy.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love to cook, George, and it's fun doing maple recipes because since Tom and I make syrup, we can experiment with it a lot. And tonight we're going to have maple Dijon glazed salmon. I make maple Dijon vinaigrette for salads, and so we use a lot of maple. And this is some of the syrup we made this year, and I would call it a medium amber. But as you can see in a jar, it just looks much darker, and that's partly because there's less syrup for the light to come through. And also in this, there's this layer of minerals, which, you know, we try to filter out. And these are just minerals like calcium that are naturally present in the sap. They're not going to hurt you, but it's best to avoid them. And, you know, because of those minerals, that's often why you see plastic containers for maple syrup. And also, you know, light may have some detrimental effects on syrup. Never really tested it because we eat it pretty fast. So today I'm demonstrating two things that were in a blog post that I did for Adirondack Life, an article, and then it's still online, called Maple on the Menu. And that goes from kind of simple to more complex things, and starts out with how to make maple soda, which is just a matter of adding maple syrup to seltzer. Maple peanuts, you can spend a fortune on maple peanuts, and at home buy a can of Planters salted nuts and add syrup and bake them, and it's easier than peanut brittle, and just so delicious. So
sounds awesome.
What I'm going to do in these two recipes, the tiramisu is pretty quick, doesn't involve any cooking. The maple butternut pudding, which with an extra run with your butane kitchen torch, you could turn into creme brulee, but I don't have a kitchen torch, so we're not going to do that. So I've done a few things ahead of time, and one of them is whipping one egg white. And probably a lot of home cooks know this. If you cool the bowl first and then whip your eggs, it goes a lot quicker. So what I've done, the first step is, this is cubed butternut squash cooked in coconut milk. So 2 cups squash, 1 cup coconut milk. And I cooked it for about, let's get it out of there. Cooked it for about 35 minutes. And it's just this kind of goopy, soft stuff. And I don't know, I experimented with just plain roasted squash, but I think the coconut milk really adds something nice.
I love your spatula there.
Oh.
Let's see, what is that somebody we know? Or?
It's Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, okay.
Back
Of course
when
it
he
is.
was a little bigger. Bigger yet smaller. Okay. So now if we wanted to stand the noise of a food processor, but I'm just going to do this with a mixer. So the whole point is to kind of get. So briefly, I used a potato masher to kind of mash up the squash, and it's getting a more even consistency. And frankly, if you like whipped squash, you could stop there and just add some salt and pepper and have it for dinner. Okay, so next we have mascarpone cheese, which you can get a lot of places in the North Country you can also make it. Mascarpone is different from cream cheese because it's made with just heavy cream and an acid like lemon juice. For that reason, the butterfat content is 75%.
Wow.
That's why it's so delicious. And it's great if you want a shortcut to frosting. Mascarpone with a little maple syrup, phenomenal. Okay. And you can put in a liqueur, vanilla, or something, almond extract. So we're getting this kind of paler yellow going on. And I have a quarter cup of maple syrup. And 1 egg. This is just the yolk. I separated the eggs, and the whites I whipped ahead of time. I'm going to have to re-whip them a little bit. And a little bit of bourbon. You don't have to do that. You can do vanilla.
That's a secret ingredient.
However, this is what I used, which comes from Lake Placid.
Okay.
Lake Placid spirits, and it has a little bit of maple and birch syrup in it.
I think I know where I'm going next.
Yeah. But, sometimes flavors, are primarily there to add a nice smell. And I think, bourbon is a pretty wonderful smell. Okay, and we should be...
It's definitely a distinctive smell.
And I think we're ready to add our egg whites. And just fold in the egg whites. And I beat these ahead of time, so, however you at home want to beat eggs, go for it. I need my Jimmy Kimmel again.
He's very helpful in the kitchen.
He is. So I'm folding this in. I'm not super concerned about, the perfect fold for something like this. It's not a souffle. But I do want it to have the lightness of a super light baked kind of, I don't know, people pudding connotes something that seems heavier, but this is like very light. And what's going on behind me is I have a small roasting pan with water in it. And when I fill up the ramekins, I'll put them in that pan with water partway up the ramekins, because that does keep a nice consistency in what we're baking. Let's do this. So, let's give this one more toss. And the mascarpone has a little bit of salt in it, so I'm not going to add salt. But if you, I don't know, salt sometimes brings out a lot of different flavors, so, but I'm skipping it today. And I'm filling these about 3/4 to 2/3 full.
Okay.
I grease these ahead of time. And, you could put these in a traditional creme brulee type oval baking dish, which I don't have. So I'll have to make do with these little 8-ounce ramekins.
I bet you they'll taste just as good.
They'll be okay. Now the recipe does make 6 of these, but I broke one of my ramekins, and so today we're making 5. And actually
Be a little more,
a little bit fuller.
a little more generous in each one.
Now what I should be doing is wiping the rim. I'll probably, I think I'll do that in a couple of these. Oops.
You said there was another type of container that you were looking for?
An oval creme brulee dish. So
okay.
they're shallower. There's much more surface area. So if you're using the traditional cracked sugar on top, there's a lot more of that to play with, which is fun.
Oh, okay.
There are plenty of YouTube videos on how to make that crackle top. It's not difficult. It's just sugar and a torch. But
okay.
for my purposes, I got enough. I got enough going on today. And furthermore, I don't have one of those.
Right.
So this is just a plain roasting pan with water that's pretty hot. And the oven is at 350.
Okay.
This is a mess. Okay, those need to bake for about 25 to 30 minutes. We'll double check at 25 and just see how it's going, because oven temperatures vary.
Okay.
And now for part 2. So maple granola is something I make on a regular basis, and what's different from my granola from some recipes is I don't use oil in the grainy part. And some people put in an egg white. I don't do that either. I think it's, in my opinion, it's fine on its own. So this is rolled oats, rolled 5-grain cereal, flaxseed, chia seed, almonds, walnuts. Usually there's sunflower seeds and pepitas. I didn't have those. And raisins and cranberries, but honestly, as far as the fruit, you can put in dried apples, apricots, dates, figs, whatever you like. I went easy on the dried fruit for this batch because it's all part of this tiramisu. And George, you could probably smell it over there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, now that my mask is off, yes.
Yeah, I mean the main thing in here is maple syrup. And I didn't put any vanilla or cinnamon in it. Certainly those things are welcome. And today's special ingredient is this mascarpone. Like I said, it's 75% butterfat, similar to cream cheese, not as edgy. This is made in Wisconsin. Turns out you can make it at home, just if you have a food thermometer and a little patience, it turns out just fine. So what I've done ahead is I've put granola in the bottom of these half-pint jars. And I think I need to, I need to warm up my butter for a sec. So the purpose of, this is just granola, a few tablespoons according to the recipe. And this isn't quite the way I want it, but it'll do. So the butter is mostly to, just firm up that granola layer. Give it a little more crunch. This is something that you don't cook. It just goes in the fridge. That's a lot of butter, but some lucky person will get that. What I'm aiming for is a full tablespoon in each one, but I think I'm getting there. Actually, more than a tablespoon. Okay. And now what I need to do is just push down on this with the back of the spoon just to incorporate it. So this brown stuff is, I call it apple crack because it's as addictive as crack. It is, it's homemade applesauce sweetened just with maple syrup, and I do that in a slow cooker. And peel and core the apples so that the texture is kind of chunky, and it's about 9 hours in the slow cooker. So 7 hours with the lid on, 2 hours with the lid off so that it gets thick. It also gets this kind of rich mahogany color. So the next layer is applesauce, and this, as you can notice, it's kind of free form.
Well, like a lot of things up here in the Adirondacks, right?
And I'm going to say, we were in Montreal 2 years ago and went to a really cool little restaurant up on the plateau called Bungalow. And they did a version of this that it was spread over a plate. So the crunchy part was here, the applesauce was there, the mascarpone layer was there. And it was delicious. And I thought, well, you can also do it in servings like this.
So this is something that you discovered in Canada?
Yeah, we went to this restaurant, and this was their take on tiramisu. It didn't involve coffee or cookies or anything like that, and there was maple syrup in it.
They've got a little of that up there in Canada too.
Yes, the Strategic Maple Reserve.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So just tapping a little bit to just consolidate the layers, and the next part is, oh boy, I missed with it. Okay, so
have a little tasting as you're going along.
yeah, well, if Julia Child can do it, I can do it too.
That's right. See.
So this is a 1/4 cup of maple syrup and 3/4 of a cup of mascarpone, and just work it in well. And if we stopped right here, this would be an awesome frosting for carrot cake. you could make this in a martini glass or some kind of cool looking.
Oh, yeah. Really creative here.
I'm going to put a little in each one, and then I'll come back and keep filling. The recipe that goes along with this video has the exact amounts. Okay, just
They're looking pretty amazing.
now this recipe works fine in the ramekins. It makes like 4 ramekins, and I decided to use these half pint glasses because I want to send one. Well, I want to send 2 of these home with you.
Well, okay. I won't say no.
These are rustic,
Mm-hmm.
but you can see the layers, and I made small portions, but and now what happens next if you're serving this at home is you refrigerate it for a couple of hours, and that just kind of everything compresses. And so I'll slide these in the fridge, and we have a couple choices for garnish. I've got nice big blackberries, and also I have sliced strawberries. So either one, or just cinnamon. Anything you want to make it a little bit prettier.
Okay, great.
All right, so we have a bonus recipe today. This is a glaze. Works nicely on salmon. This is king salmon from Alaska, and works on sockeye salmon. Also works on pork. Can even work on chicken thighs in a sheet pan. So this is very grainy mustard that I make with maple syrup and ubu, the dark beer from Lake Placid. A little bit of maple syrup and a little bit of soy sauce or tamari. So, and it's kind of equal parts each one. And this is the dregs of a quart of syrup. And got about just over a tablespoon in there. And so that's my, oops, let's get this back together. And this mustard it's fun to make. It takes several days using whole mustard seeds, brown and yellow, and little action in a seed grinder, spice grinder, and little salt, some vinegar, and a whole bottle of beer. So this is our maple mustard tamari glaze, and it's just a kind of a pasty consistency. And the amount I just made is certainly enough for a pound of salmon. And I'm going to put this on now and cook it at dinner time at 400 degrees. And I've come around to cooking salmon and thick halibut at 400 degrees rather than trying to cook it hotter or not so hot. And it seems like you get a nice moist fish out of it. And really so the glaze is really kind of a thick paste. And it will be just fine sitting in the fridge like that. And if you're going to do this with chicken, I would just recommend putting it on kind of at the last minute before you slide it in the oven.
So why would it be different between the fish and the chicken?
That's a great question. I'm afraid that if you're using it on chicken that has the skin on, it's not going to penetrate. And chicken without the skin, it's going to dry out even with a thick glaze like that. So I want to tilt it. I don't think they're quite there yet.
Not quite? No.
I don't know. Can you tell if they're jiggling?
Let's see.
I'll just put my finger on it.
So are they ready?
I think they are. Getting these guys out of here
Okay.
is going to be a challenge because there we go. An old-fashioned jar lifter. Okay, so that's it.
Okay.
And I'll put some berries on the tiramisu. So there's your take home.
There they are.
And here's the cool thing about
Oh, there you go. See?
little
Perfect.
travel.
Storage in the fridge.
Yep. So, and there you've got, the layers and
Yeah. Beautiful.
I think that's just a little bit of color in there.
Yeah.
And let's get another one ready to go. And this will cool in your car. All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Betsy.
Thank you.
This has been great.
Fun.
Yeah.
All right.